Well, as you know, if you've been watching my channel, I have now completed the Sons of Cadia DLC, also called the Red War DLC, on the campaign selection map. In terms of a general ranking, I know it's very subjective, but I would give this a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed the game, and I would recommend it if you like turn-based strategy games, and you really like Warhammer 40,000 because those two things together made this an enjoyable experience for me. In terms of the things I liked about the game, I did feel that the Imperial Guard played differently than both the Space Marines and the Orcs. Their units really felt like glass cannons. They could do damage, they had to stay behind cover, but if the Orcs came in and got into close quarters combat with you, or they opened fire on you, your Imperial Guardsmen would just be destroyed, and that felt appropriate given that the Imperial Guard are largely just fodder, and they fight more with numbers and not necessarily the quality. I did like on the Claw of Mork level that they did try to experiment and add a little bit of variation to the campaign map instead of just capturing the victory points. Take these explosives, blow up the generators, then go to the Claw of Mork and then blow that up. It just kind of changed it up a little bit, so I appreciated them experimenting with that. I also like that the orcs had some new units as well. You had a Morkanaut. It felt like maybe the orcs felt a little bit stronger, so maybe they did some balancing on there. I also really liked the writing for the skills for the Imperial Guard. Some of them were actually quite humorous, and I enjoyed that. I also liked that they gave you liberal use of the Metapack skill. I felt that was very necessary for the infantry, and it really allowed you to keep throwing out your commissars, other hero units, Olgrins, Volgrins. You could send them out, get them shot up, run back behind the lines, heal them up with your Imperial Guard, and send them back out. So made them have a better use because without that skill, if it was really rare, like the healing salve was for some of the Imperial Guard or Space Marines, then you may not have been able to use quite as much infantry. I also thought the flamers seemed to be upgraded, so they did more consistent damage, and they were actually able to kill units a lot easier than they have in the prior games. Maybe that's just me because I haven't played in a while, but it did seem like I was able to level up some of the flamers, and then the hellhounds were actually able to be leveled up. I was worried about that when I saw that unit, but it really wasn't an issue. In terms of things I didn't like about the game, really I didn't feel that it had significant story, and so therefore I no, it's became very redundant. There's no real new level designs other than the one experimental mission, which I talked about earlier. It was very much the same, capture victory points, east versus west, fight each other. So, they didn't really change the formula at all. And because of that, I felt it was probably overpriced. I think their release price was $15. And quite frankly, the reason it took me so long to actually play this game is I refused to pay more than $10 because I thought that was probably what it was going to be worth, and I still feel that way. I think the game when it came out was $25, so having one campaign mission where you've created some new units, but you've recycled really the old mechanics and things, is it really almost worth greater than 50% of the full release game? Probably not. So the $10 I thought was appropriate. I do like that on Steam, if you buy the games and they create a new DLC with this Sanctus Reach, that you'll get a bundled price off, so they'll actually give you a certain percentage off, and then when you get on top of a sale in addition to that, that's how I got it to be for around $10, which I thought was probably appropriate. Again, with most Slytherin games, there seems to be very wide variances in the damage that units are able to inflict, and that needs to be narrowed down. I mean, you can totally miss, that's fine. Nobody's going to hit all the time, but when they do damage, I think it needs to be a little more consistent. Again, on the Grim Darkness setting, which is the hardest difficulty level of the game, one of the ways it becomes harder is the orcs will just get reinforcements randomly on the map, and the first turn that they reinforce, they just warp in from nowhere. Usually it's on the area farthest of the map from where your units are, but sometimes they actually will warp on top of your units, and then they get to move and attack on that first turn. So that's just a bad mechanic, especially when they do warp in on your own units, because you can already be in a precarious situation. They warp on top of you, and then they get to just slaughter your units because the Imperial Guardsmen, their infantry units, just can't take a hit as is appropriate, and so that you can all of a sudden just be slaughtered by this mechanic. So you have to be real careful with how you position your unit. I think they shouldn't be able to move or attack on that first turn. Another mechanic I didn't particularly like is I felt it was way too hard to level up the Grenadiers. They did tons of damage, would weaken things. They were kind of like the old Flamers on the other games. They could do tons of damage to infantry, but then they couldn't actually kill them, and so that's just frustrating. And the Bulgrins had the same issue. You could sit there and shoot them from range with the grenades, and the grenades did like no damage, so you'd try to get them into close combat, but then again, the damage variance would be so wide that you couldn't always kill units, so it became hard to level them up. I also thought the Valkyries felt a little too squishy. You know, it's an aircraft, it's supposed to be flying all around the battlefield. I feel like they should get a little bit of a harder to hit mechanic, so they're not able to be taken down so easily. It felt like the land speeders for the Marines and even the Def Copters seemed to have a significant increase in their armor and were harder to take down, so I don't understand why the Valkyries were so soft. Overall, I thought most of the vehicle's armor um, probably could have been increased. I think if they go around and flank you or shoot you from the sides, that should be able to do the damage. But when they sit there and hit you from the front, especially with some sluggas, and then all of a sudden do like 80 damage, that just seems a little bit ridiculous. The other thing I didn't like about this is I didn't feel like they gave you the ability to level up your units enough. They would give you very, very limited access to certain Titans that weren't already almost maximum level at the game, and so you never got to level them up appropriately. So when it came to the last level where you're just being swarmed with orcs, if you didn't have it leveled up all the way, then you didn't get the advantage of using all of the skills. So I felt they should, instead of giving you access to, the level 4 Titans, some of which were level 4 when you first even got them almost, they should have given you those level 1s and let you build them up a little bit to get some variation. It was also unclear to me whether the Shadow Sword that you got on the last level, if that was only available to you on the very last level, or if that was randomly available to you on some of the other levels as well. If it was available to you, then it was much too rare because you didn't get access to it to the last level. And if they wanted to wait till the last level because there were so many Gorkonaut and Morkonauts and they needed it to help you be able to attack guys, well, that's fair then. But maybe it should have been max level, maybe had like a repair ability or some other things to make it, because it's like you have to level it up. It's like, well, what's the point of this other than just getting one skill? And again, my main concern with the online play is I think it's a very poor design. You go, you match up with somebody who wants to play as well. You have a turn, you move your units, and then you quit out of the game, and then they move, and then you get an email. So games can take days. So pretty much I don't even play the online version of this, which I think would be quite enjoyable against other players, just because you get to fight them and get to see how they would control the units and learn some different play styles. But because it's so slow, I just don't have any interest in it. And so that's unfortunate, because I don't think it would necessarily be too tedious to um, have you play it all real time. You'd probably just have to have turn limits in terms of how many minutes you could have per turn, and if you couldn't get things done in that time, then it would just automatically end your turn. Or, you guys may have other ideas about that, but again, these are just my own personal views. So again, I enjoyed the Sanctus Reach DLC. I would recommend it. I think it's probably overpriced, but if you can get it for around $10 or less, I would recommend picking it up. I think it would be worth the money, and you'll get some enjoyment out of it. Thanks for watching, and again, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe, and I will continue to post videos on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Have a good day.